Now let's get back to ULEZ. We all know that in the 1950s, London had horrific problems with smog. There is little doubt that the Clean Air Act in the early 1950s made a fundamental difference to this city and to people's way of life. But when it comes to the congestion charge and then the extension of ULEZ out to the South and North Circular, well, maybe there are some marginal benefits for the environment, though I rather doubt it. It just turns out to be tax on most people. But even if there are marginal benefits, I'm convinced that extending the ULEZ zone right out to the edges of Greater London doesn't work for many reasons. Now, David Lammy, one of Khan's great cheerleaders, says we'll just get public transport. But actually, out on the edges, you can't get public transport. You need a car. So ULEZ comes in on the 29th of August. It'll be £12.50 to leave or to come into Greater London. If you're a nurse on an overnight shift in a hospital just inside the boundary and you do the overnight shift, it's going to cost you £25 a day. Opposition is mounting. Interestingly, now 4 Labour MPs have spoken up against it. County councils all around the edge of London are now speaking up against it. They're all saying they won't have the ULEZ cameras sited in their counties. Well, they won't need to, because actually the cameras will be on the boundaries. And some of the London boroughs have woken up. Indeed, Bexley, Bromley, Harrow, Hillingdon and Sutton, interestingly. Sutton's fascinating because it's run by the Lib Dems, who in the London Assembly all voted for it. But never mind, Sutton Council is opposing it. I'm joined by Colin Smith, Conservative leader of Bromley Council. Now, when you go right out to the end of the southernmost point of the Bromley Borough, the Westram Hill point, you are, for the whole of Greater London, at the furthest point from where we are now in Westminster. Khan says that Bromley Borough is one of the worst boroughs in the whole of London for people dying of lung diseases caused by pollution. What do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, Nigel, thank you for having me on. Regarding Mr. Khan, he's talking arrant nonsense. We know in Bromley that we have the cleanest air in the whole of the capital, bar Havering. We're very marginally second to Havering. We know in Bromley that our air is cleaner than any of the boroughs already ensnared within the Mayor's ULEZ. Mm-hmm. And we simply know that what he's attempting to do is set up a network of cameras across London so that at a flick of a switch, at a time of his choosing, he can introduce road price charging, which will absolutely collar everyone, whether you're driving a non-compliant car, a green car, a hybrid or whatever.
So do you see the ULEZ extension as a beginning of road pricing in London and perhaps across the country more widely?
Absolutely. He already is employing people at City Hall to map it out and scope it. Mm-hmm. Council leaders, those of us that are preparing a legal challenge at least, have now seen maps of where he wants to put the cameras all across our boroughs. And I have to tell you, it is an impenetrable network. You will not be able to plot your way around it.
Even through country lanes and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. So, you know, if you live in a country lane...
which I do.
Yeah, indeed you do. You will find, and you obviously know some of the outskirts of our borough, in the most remote spots in London, you will see cameras being put up that will basically, as you say, charge people £12.50 a day going about their daily business.
Doesn't bother me tuppence, Colin, personally, because I've got a nice new car, I can afford it, I'm on a good income. Doesn't affect me at this stage one little bit. But those that have got older cars, those that are on lower incomes, those that are retired, they're the ones that are actually going to pay the price for this. An estimated revenue of up to £400,000 a day. It's big money, isn't it?
It's awful. And whether it's... I've had some really, really sad phone calls, really tragic stories of businessmen who have sunk £20,000, £30,000 into buying a van, 2 vans. They're really scared because they don't know where they're going to get the money from to replace the vehicles they need to replace. And that is, of course, even if they can source them, because there's a shortage, particularly around the Euro 7s. So there's that on the one hand, but Ironically, the lady Secretary General of Unison, of all people, I heard passing this message this morning, which struck me as slightly ironic. The care networks all across London, you've got the scenario of a son living in Sevenoaks going to see a mum in Beckenham. £12.50, £25 if they stay overnight. It's scandalous.